Yep, well, that's a clever move. I talk about having my box, my bag, and I've forgotten it. G'day everyone, it is Sunday, so I'm hoping that you're having a relaxing day or had a good weekend when you're watching this. And I am headed to the south because I've got that camera to fix up at Warren's bore, so I'm going to put a new one in there, and I'm going to go to Sweetwater to check out what's going on. The camera's not been reporting in, so I'll have a good look at that. And while I'm there, I'm going to give it its little 48 volt birthday. I spent a bit of time in the workshop this morning getting the gear together for that. So I've made up a little bracket and I've got a drum as a cover. My intention is that I'm taking everything down in a manner that it can just be screwed or bolted in, so tech screwed in, rather than having to load the welder up and take that out with me. This little model, if it works, will be what I do at a number of other water points that are going to be on that 48 volt system, which is 48 volts for the bore supply, but also that 48 volts is going to be able to run the communications equipment as well. Yeah, so that's today. Rejig Sweetwater and get Warren's camera going again. This is after the rainfall, so there's a little bit of water on some parts of the road, but it is all accessible. Right, time to drive for a little bit and we'll see what we get up to. I've talked a little bit about road design and engineering every now and then, how one of the goals is to make sure that you don't have water being drawn in onto the road and you want to get it off and back out into the country. Driving through a Shire maintained road, and it's a very good example of what shouldn't happen. You will notice, or you might not be able to notice it from the angles and everything, that where I am in the road is actually lower than the landscape out there. So it's only natural that the water's going to come into here, and the distinct lack of drains. So yeah, a little frustrating. It's hard underneath, you can get through it. Okay, we are finally here at Sweetwater, and I'll get to unloading all my stuff and laying it out nicely. So my dipstick is down at the moment, which usually isn't a good thing. And yeah, I think the little kit that I made up will be able to mount in nicely under here. The lights over here are indicating that the tank is full. So usually those sensors are accurate. And what it could be is, yep, that our dipstick is stuck. So usually you've seen me pull the car right up and nose it on so I can hit that, but I've got to unload my ladder, so I'll knock that up in a second. So yeah, the objective here is to take all of the stuff down from up there that we don't need to have up there anymore. So the box is going to come down because that's not needed. The solar is going to come down because that also isn't needed, because everything is going to be run off these two panels here. And we'll get into that in just a moment. Right, that's most of the gear unstacked, and I'm going to just do the dipstick first. Then we'll get on to getting some power charging up the 48 volt battery. Since the pump's not running, it'd be a good opportunity now to get some volts going into it so she's fully topped up before we start using any of it. And here our water level is a lot higher than it used to be. What I did is I changed where that float itself, like the float switch, the one that will tell us that the tank is full, is so that it would be at its maximum potential. The little ballast here is what the float height is set via. I've got a zip tie there pulling it up further, but this unit here, when it's down, it is empty, so it's a normally open circuit. When it goes up like that, which is, when it's at the same height as the water and the ballast, it closes the circuit and tells the solar that the tank is full. While I'm messing around here, I would like to, and I'm going to turn the Wi-Fi off in the car, see if I can work out what's going on with that and why that wasn't coming onto the network, because clearly there's been enough sun and the battery up there should be charged. Hopefully it's not dead, but it's a new battery up there. So from an initial glance, I can't work out what's going on up there, and I don't want to climb up there and put all my rigging on, climb up, have a look, only to come down and have to do this again anyway. So I'll save that for when I'm doing that project. Now initially here, I'm going to get the battery mount in, and then it's all going to change because when I put the box from upstairs down here, I'll put the charge controller in that as well so that it's all nice, neat and tidy. So first up, I'm going to lay this across. I will give it a quick measure and then get to doing some cutting. All right, so I want to make sure that I've got this up enough, and the other thing make sure is that I don't put too much pressure on it all. So I might just go for a little bit above ground level. So I'll measure from the top down to put in these brackets that I drilled out so that I can screw it onto that. And then once I've got those, I'll be able to make my measurements and cuts. Turns out I did pack a spirit level because I grabbed one of my sort of go kit boxes. It's got a huge assortment of my Wi-Fi and cable making and repair equipment. It's sort of a surplus / dump spot, but it had this little spirit level. So I'll measure and cut this before I lock these ones right into place. So 1440 is going to do us pretty well. She could go up, yeah, it could go up close to 1 inch. So you can leave that stuck on there. You're going to be able to undo this Tek screw over here and just move it to the other hole, and we'll see how much closer we get. But so I drilled 2 holes, and that was so that when I put these in, I can have it 2, so it won't rock and roll if something comes and hits it. This also lets me change it up to help lift it to get it more square. That has been a success. Pretty good. Right, I'm gonna whack in those other screws and then I will put a larger hole there so I can put a tech through down into it. Right, looks like it'll hold it. Okay, I need to knock up a temporary lead because I'm going to use a different length for the charging of the unit. I thought I packed one, I might have just left it behind thinking it was a good idea. You will also notice that I have brought out the table. So that is, thank you very much to Robert Hocking for reminding me that there is an easier way to do things and that bringing a table with me really isn't that much effort. Sure, I could be working on the back of the ute, but there are a lot of times where the table's much more convenient. And I could have brought a chair, but oh well, you know, small improvements every day. So it's much nicer working up here and being able to lay everything out clearly, not in the dirt. So thanks again. And that's what I really like about this channel is, as much as it is, you know, for entertainment, a lot of people are coming up with great suggestions, little reminders as to other ways to make it a lot nicer to work out here. So thanks again for that reminder and for everyone for your input all the way through the channel. So onto this cable, and if I can't find one, I will make one that will work and or be used somewhere else. Okay, so this is a Victron Smart Solar. So their Smart Solar series are the ones with the Bluetooth programming, so you can log on to them straight there and then without having to use the direct Bluetooth dongle. It's a 120, so it has got a voltage range, so it can do a 12, 24 or 48 volt battery, and it'll charge out at 20 amps. Now, the most that it can take in at 48 volts from a solar panel is 1160. We're going to be well and truly below that with those two panels. So she will do just fine, as we've seen out on other water points. So we'll shut the pump down first so that there's no possible way that it's on load. Before we disconnect the panels. With filming this one, I'm a little at odds as to getting my camera angle so you can actually see what's going on. But when I've got the programming up, I'm going to have it up over that pole so it's not in the way. But I've got all of this in the way so you can't see everything that's going on. I'm going to start the phone's screen recorder and leave that down there, and I'll sync the audio up when I edit. So with your charge controllers, you plug them into the battery first. That helps them to know what battery they're going on to, whether it's a 12, 24 or a 48 volt. And just because this is a quick and dirty to get some volts going into it while we're bringing the rest of the stuff down, I'm not going to bother with exact placement of my leads. 48 volts has got a lot of tickle, especially when they're a 100 amp hour battery. Okay, put that somewhere it's not going to get in a bad spot. I can see the car one, and I've got this new one. Pair it up with the default. Wants an update. Okay. Before we hook the solar panels up, I'm going to make sure that we... Oh, another update. Now, I've changed my glasses over and I just flicked the internet on the car. So now that we're into the unit, we're going to go in and make sure that we set it to a lithium battery. Does this have a BMS? Looking at the top here, I assume it does. So we are loaded up with the Victron Smart Lithium default settings, and let's put some power into it. So negatives in. Let's get our positive going. These solar panels are, the P max is 250 watt, their maximum current 8.6, and their maximum power voltage is 31. So we should be well and truly in the safe zone. And there we go. It's only bringing in 5 amps as we go. If we notice that this is a problem, we will upgrade the solar panels to some slightly bigger ones, but generally the load that these pumps draw is quite low. I may even be able to run this pump's load off the load control on this battery. We'll give that a go, but for now we are onto climbing up a tower and starting to break down everything that's up there to bring it in and install this very, very nicely, but we're getting this thing juiced up in the meantime. Rightio, so I'm going to be going up the tower. One of the things I've not been filming a lot of lately is climbing the towers, etc, etc. There's a lot of criticism that comes about it. The big thing is that now with solar and everything, you generally don't have to go and climb up a tower. But when I do, I am being safe. So I'm just going to untangle some of my little setup here. I am using a harness. Using a harness which Ant gave me, and I have always been looking, for another one or a new one or anything, but this just works. It's brilliant. So I harness up, it gives me plenty of room. I can latch on, and then I've got 2 hands for everything, and I can get to everything. Now I know that as I was driving away from home, I was sitting there going, oh, I've forgotten something. I know I've forgotten something. And yes, it was a bag to stash everything that I'm going to undo up there into. But I have, I've emptied out my range bag here, which, yeah, really it's a range bag, not a go bag. And I'm looking into buying a new one because this one has worn itself out a little bit. But this is my range bag, and it's what I stash a load of my ammo, magazines, etc. into. But it also has got a first aid kit in it. So up there I'm not really going to need it, so I'm just going to take it out so it's not that extra little bit of weight, but it is a good little lightweight bit of safety gear that I have with me. And all our cars have got tourniquets and compression bandages, etc., and first aid kits, just in case something really bad does happen. And when I'm on the bike, I definitely carry one. So I'm going to be able to have that slung around so I can stash stuff in it. I've got some tools in my pocket, my microphone's in my middle, so I can use both of these pockets. But let's get to throwing the harness on. It's a nice harness which I can wear over all my gear, but I will take the Leatherman off and clip that on in another locale. It is a climbing harness, so it's not a well, I prefer this. It's much nicer than being completely bound up with a lot of the other gear that you could be running. And one of the really good things is that it's not too cumbersome for working in and walking around, so it's not tight, and you can continue to do all your other jobs, etc., with the harness on, and you just latch on, latch off when you need to. 1, 2. All right, so we'll see how this camera goes on the back there. Hopefully it doesn't interfere with any of my work or the harness. The problem I have with the 360 camera is that the screen, like the lens, gets scratched so very easily. And I put a screen protector, like lens protector, and all it did was fog up and then get in the way of some good footage. Now, I think I've worked out one of our issues as to why we may not be getting connection here. And it looks like our friendly birds, who I can hear squawking away, have done a number on it. So, now that we're up here, let's get ourselves latched on. Yep, well, that's a clever move. I talk about having my box, my bag, and I've forgotten it. So that lets me sit up here quite freely, able to move around, inspect all my cameras and everything, and be hands-free, and then I can adjust it tighter with that. Right. I'm going to undo the positive on the battery first, and undo the battery itself. Now, this lead that was doing our battery might be long enough for our new one. Okay, so the next stage up here will be coming up with the tech gun and undoing the box and getting that down. For now, I'm going to take all of this gear look at the Willy Willy over there, and get back to ground level. All right. The cameras are enjoying the heat at the moment, so I've put you in the shade of the tank, so it should be nice and cool. But I've taken the 360 cam off just so I've got a little bit more movement and freedom, but you got the idea of what it's like up there with that camera. So I'm going to go up now with my gear and tech gun, and I'm going to take the large steel box. I'm going to tie it off and I'm going to lower it nicely. So hopefully that's captured on this, especially if I drop it or anything. But I'm good to go, and yeah, I'll see you in a bit. Now, if you think that was fun getting it down, getting it up there was a hell of a lot more effort. Right, I'm going to flick this off while I sort out a few other bits, and then we will be right back into it. Right, the box is down and the solar panel is down here unharmed, and I've got the solar bracket as well. Now that's not going to be used, and if I do use it, I'm going to be using a different size U-bolt. Why that's important here is I'm going to mount it up on here, and I'll put the U-bolts through just like I did at Windetta Spring. So I've got to drill some holes through that unit, but before I get into that, I'm going to grab one of my pieces of angle iron and put it just there, so that I've got a base for this all to sort of lean on while I work on it, making it a little bit easier, because I'm not going to be using those anywhere else, or I don't have any plans to use them anywhere else at the moment. So I may as well make my life here just a little bit easier. One of the things that slowed me down upstairs was I needed the smaller battery to be able to actually get into the box to undo the tech screws that were holding that up there. All right, so after a little bit of contemplation, a few broken drill bits and a little bit of swearing, but mainly after grabbing the U-bolt and seeing if it was going to be the right size to be able to go around the pole and into the unit, I decided that the Tech screws are going to be good enough, because if we look here, the U-bolt, even through, it'll just be on the edge of the thread, so it's not actually going to hold it all that well. So I've gone for Tech screws, and I cut another piece for the top so that it's clamped in there quite nicely. Now, it is only 2 Tech screws holding it, which doesn't give it a whole load of strength, especially if, you know, it's got any serious pressure put on it. But they're in position that when I have the welder down here, everything is in the right spot, that we just disconnect all the electrics and give it a quick weld, and we'll be pretty happy. So yeah, that's teched into that, so it's nice there. Yeah, it's gonna get a fair bit of afternoon sun. If I'm really concerned, I will just get some draper matting and whack it on the side here to give it shade, especially during the summer. That's about that. So all I've got to do here, get my charge pump controller and work out my holes. Now, this one has been run off the genset before, and I have used solar here before, like a battery bank, to run this before. I am going to keep the option to just run straight off solar on it. So I'm going to leave those leads in, and I'll tuck them up inside this box, so that if there is any issue with the battery system or anything, you can just click it straight onto the solar panels and have water pumping while you work out the problem. So that means that you could fly in, temporarily fix the problem, and then come down with all the gear that you do need. Now, I measured it so it can't contact these. But what I didn't measure is how long this tongue was compared to that. All right, so it's coming up on 4:30, and I've got at least an hour before I'm home. So instead of climbing and running all my cables now, I'm going to pack all of this away, take what I need to take back, leave anything that can be left, and I'm going to finish it off tomorrow morning. At least all the tricky stuff is done. It's just onto running some cables and stuff. So yeah, I'll be back in the morning.